All right, Justin, let's talk about Ryan Connelly, the con man. 6'2", 242 pounds, 24 years old. Was picked in the 2019 draft with the 143rd overall pick in the 5th round. Justin, we only got to see 4 games of the kid. It was exciting, and then we lost him to a torn ACL. What do you got on him?
It was probably one of the lowest points of the season because I feel like Ryan Connelly coming into last year, he was like this. I feel like he was like a mythical creature, Bobby Skinner. Now hear me out, because we didn't know what to expect from him, but some people were very high on him and like, this guy's going to be great. And then we saw him; he was great in the preseason. And then he actually got his shot, and we were still out. We were still like, should we pump the brakes on Ryan Connelly? But then he was good, and then he was taken away from us. Bobby, he's quite the romantic. Ryan Connelly is quite the romantic. He got engaged in February, and he engaged to his girlfriend. I believe her name is Sydney. Yes, her name is Sydney. And in New York City, with like a beautiful building in the background, it almost looks like the 30 Rock building. There was candles all over the roof. It was on a rooftop. It was beautiful. So Ryan Connelly, quite the romantic, and he's also suffering from male pattern baldness at the age of 24.
You don't have to be romantic to do like a big engagement. You have to be romantic. You have to do that consistently. But
Willing to bet that he is.
You got inside sources?
Yes.
All right, Ryan, let's talk about the con man. Justin, he played in 4 games. He started 3 games at Buffalo, Tampa Bay, and Washington. He had 20 tackles, 2 tackles for a loss, a sack, and 2 interceptions. If you take his game started at a 16-game rate, it's 96 tackles. I'm not going to do the 16-game rate, 8 interceptions. Obviously, that's not realistic. But the tackles one is realistic. He was averaging 6 tackles per start. That goes to 96 tackles on the season. Justin, when you watched him in Wisconsin, you saw the exact same things you saw with the Giants. And it was a question like, does he have this confidence when it goes to the NFL? And he did. And what it was, Justin, was one, instincts. My man knows where the ball's going. He sniffs out a counter play. He sniffs out a play action. He knows where the ball's going. And on top of that, he does it faster than any Giants linebacker I can remember in my lifetime. I cannot remember a Giants linebacker who was as fast and agile as Ryan Connelly. I mean, you see the way he dips through holes and stuff like that. It's unbelievable. And he has the reaction time with instincts where even if he makes a mistake at first, he'll get back into the right spot. He scrapes over the top on outside plays. And it sets up the other linebacker to be successful because then he can fill in stuff. And maybe he doesn't make a tackle on a play, but he forces a running back out of the hole, and a defensive lineman makes that play. I mean, it's fun to watch. His speed, his agility, matched with his instincts and aggressiveness, is so fun to watch at the linebacker spot. We haven't seen anything like that, I don't think, in this century. Antonio Pierce, the best inside linebacker of the 21st century for the Giants, we didn't see that kind of stuff out of Antonio Pierce. Now, his issue is that he's not that strong. So when he does get engaged, or if it's a goal line play, he can get knocked back. That is his weakness, is his strength. And I just don't know how the torn ACL is going to affect all this, Justin. I kind of just want to see him, like, if he can go out there and fly, start him. If he's looking out there and he's struggling and he doesn't have that same thing, then that becomes like this guy we're super excited about to maybe next year, or maybe it just never happens ever.
Yeah, you're ready for me to repeat the same thing I've repeated on this podcast 5 times. Fantasy football data, you're coming off of a torn ACL. Your best productivity in terms of, let me just say, your best productivity is not 1 year removed from your torn ACL, it's 2 years removed from your torn ACL. So we've seen that with guys like Dalvin Cook. We even saw it with guys like Marcus Golden, who was the 2nd year removed from his torn ACL. I think we even saw it with AP a couple years back too. So the expectations for Connelly, now that doesn't say to temper your expectations about Connelly, but I think, hey, get really excited for Ryan Connelly in 2021. But Bobby, I almost wanted to stop you, and you're like, all right, you're really the last decade, this is like the Giants linebacker that you've gotten the most excited about watching him. But then I remembered John Beeson towards literally the final year of his career, and then I remembered Jonathan Casillas, and then I remembered our good friend Alec Ogletree, friend of the program, not really. And I'm like, okay, I guess you're kind of spot on. I'll take your word for it that you were that excited over Ryan Connelly, and it was warranted.
It's just when you watch him do that stuff, and it's not like he's just now. There's times where he does like overplay something because of his aggressiveness, which I'm fine with. Like I will take that every day of the week over somebody who plays very passive, and the only time he gets a tackle is 5 yards back. David Mayo. I will take that any day. Because it causes havoc on offenses where he just dips his head and he just causes havoc. He can make a play from the backside. It's crazy when you see it. Like when you saw it at Wisconsin, you're like, does this translate to the NFL, this speed? And you'd see him like play man coverage against a running back that was fast and like, oh wow, he's step for step with that guy. It's speed, man, and that's what I look for in linebackers nowadays. Is speed and aggressiveness, and that's what Ryan Connelly has. Like, I mean, there's really no one else out there like that that's we've seen as a New York Giant.
Combine measurements. He ran a 4.66. It's actually crazy, Bobby, because Blake Martinez runs a 4.66. Conley ran a 4.66. So I guess is this one of those examples where
the 40-yard dash is not the same as playing linebacker?
That's what I was gonna say. It's one of those examples where the 40-yard dash doesn't do what the film says justice.
Right. Let's talk about his role.
Yeah,
he's someone who's I feel like not having a preseason hurts, because we're going to see him in preseason, see how he looks out there. Obviously they can do as much as they can in practice, but it's just not the same as game reps. I want him to be the number 2 inside linebacker. How I would attack week 1, Justin, and this is coming from a fan point of view, not Joe Judge, is I would give him reps. See how he looks, and if he looks like he's fine, then start him over David Mayo next to Blake Martinez. And he's a perfect guy to go with Blake Martinez, who kind of makes the right play, plays it smart, plays gap, where Connelly could come in and just cause havoc.
Yeah, you would think that it would be a good balance between Martinez and Connelly because Connelly is the one that's being a bit more aggressive. Martinez is the one who's being a bit more patient most of the time, being that smart, high IQ football player you certainly hope. I can see and I can envision, week 1, week 2, especially going against Shanahan's offense, Bobby, where I think what you saw out of Blake Martinez when he went up against Shanahan's offense is he was really overthinking things. Whereas if we have Mayo and Martinez going up against Shanahan's offense week 2, and they're being very passive and they're waiting for things to come to them, that's going to be very disastrous.
Yeah.
I would rather have Ryan Connelly playing with his instincts, running around, trying to make plays, trying to dive for some ankles, for some running backs' ankles. I would rather have that than I think just patience, conservative from Mayo and Martinez. So,
and while he does play like a wild man, it's not total chaos, Yeah. It's not like you're just like, okay, we can just take advantage of this guy's aggressiveness, where he follows his keys. Like, he just reads those keys if a guard is pulling or something, and he like processes them way quicker than anybody else. Like, listen, I feel like we're talking about this guy like he's going to be all pro. I think he's got a great role as a starting linebacker for a long time. We'll see how much the strength comes into play because I remember Frank Gore just ran him over, and then when a guard gets on him, he like can drive him back 5 yards or so. The strength is what stops him from being like the guy. You know what I'm saying? But the speed and agility is just nuts, man. It is so fun to watch, and I haven't seen a Giants linebacker play like that in forever.
Has at least 2 years to develop that strength while Martinez is on the team. That Martinez signing is basically a contract is basically a 2-year contract. So I'm excited. But Bobby, where I think, especially if Patrick Graham feels like he only has one capable inside linebacker this year, let's just say he's not really feeling like Ryan Connelly is having the same explosiveness that he had last year, and we're still not feeling awesome about David Mayo. Especially on third downs, and this has been something that I've harped on over and over this offseason, maybe even second downs, we're going to see one interior linebacker on the field. Do not be surprised. I think that's where the league is trending. And Bob, you've even talked about before just about the devaluation of interior linebackers. I think that's the one time where you really harp on positional value is when looking at the value of interior linebackers. They're valuable, but it's not as valuable as it used to be. So
I think the elite guys are extremely valuable, but I feel like those guys are hard to come by. That's why with Blake Martinez, people are like, oh, Blake Martinez sucks. It's like, no, Blake Martinez doesn't suck, but I wasn't a fan of his, Littleton, Schobert. I wasn't a fan of any of those guys, of giving any of those guys big money. Granted, Blake Martinez, like you said, it's essentially a 2-year deal, but I feel like the top guys are huge, like Luke Kuechly, Patrick Willis, Ray Lewis, those guys are total defense changers.
Yeah, Wagner.
But I just feel like the middle ground isn't great in the inside linebacker position.
Yeah. So we hope Connelly continues to develop. It just may come at the let me say this. The snap count just may not be that high this year. It may not be as high as a starting number 2 interior linebacker because, number 1, he may not be ready. And number 2, Patrick Graham just may choose to run his defense where he wants to be rolling out 3 safeties on the field at the same time. And this also goes into the versatility of McKinney, Peppers, and Love as well. So that may inhibit Ryan Connelly being on the field as much as we think this year. But also, I feel like because we do have those options, Bobby, if Ryan Connelly is on the field and he is getting a decent amount of snaps, that means the coaching staff feels really good about where he is, and then we feel really good about where we should feel really good about where he is.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see. It's definitely one of those guys where week 1 we're gonna get a lot clearer idea of who he is this season. All right, that's the show. We appreciate you guys for listening. Ross Cockrell episode tomorrow. We'll see you then. Until then, let's go Big Blue.